Good morning. I'm free. The clink wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I'm still not free yet. I'm kind of on probation. Jerks. But good morning, Gabby. Hey, Flash fan. How's it going? I am done with copyright school. I passed with flying colors. I got to watch a video of cartoon characters. It's great. Uh, Lumpy and the Lumpettes and Russell. I was Russell. It was wonderful. Wonderful. Like, this is the most serious thing I think I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, gonna get in trouble. You're telling me I could have legal ramifications, and you show me a cartoon. I'll take it seriously. It's whatever. Hello, Tracy. How are you doing? Ah, goodness. You're always hungry, Flesh fan, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of hungry too. But somebody wanted to join me today. Yes, Russell. I was Russell. And he had a hook for a hand. He was like a pirate. I'm like, what the heck? Why does he have a hook? Why is he? It was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right. Here's who wanted to join me, probably to make fun of me for
Sup, criminal?
going to copyright school. Life is great. Hey, took me over a year. And I'm the one always warning people. But it's all right. It's okay. When I wrote it all down, and I was like, you know what? I didn't do any of this, but okay. If I was an attorney, I would fight it tooth and nail, but I am not. And what could happen to me if I did and didn't do it correctly is worse. So it's all right. It's okay.
I guess I'll bail you out if you continue to copy.
Oh, there won't be any continued because I got to be good for 90 days.
It's like driving school when you get a speeding ticket.
Also, knock on wood, I've never had. So
Me neither.
I don't get in trouble. This is weird.
I've never had a speeding ticket either.
You guys all told me last night I'm a rule follower. Apparently, I'm not.
Your chat's delusional.
Well, they don't know me in real life, but a lot has happened since you've been away, Tracy.
Tracy, I went to work
Hey,
and
you're
I
a little
came
loud.
home. Oh, I'm sorry. Tracy, I went to work last night and I came home and I was like, what is happening? Try to shut this down a little bit.
I did not yet. I don't know. I haven't checked my mail. Every time I go there, it's empty and like bats and cobwebs are in there, so I don't go check it very often. That was a hint to you, Gabby.
Yeah.
All right. So today I have the sentencing of Ronald Schroeder. If you don't remember him, he's that wonderful dude from Wisconsin who we did the cold case on, had the best audio ever. I'm being sarcastic. It had the worst audio ever. He was sentenced, so we're going to watch his sentencing. The audio is better. We can hear, but they are horrible at turning it off and turning it back on. So they're going to there's a couple that we're going to kind of just catch as they are already speaking. And I don't know who they are because I've already said who they are. There's going to be one I think is going to probably irritate you to no end for the defense. I haven't even listened to it yet because I was just trying to hurry up. I didn't get all the timestamps, so you have to bear with me at the end. She is advocating for Mr. Schroeder to be set free. No. If you don't remember him, Tracy, I thought I might have to write lines like Bart Simpson, but I didn't. I would. I will not use any media that is in the Sinclair group.
It's because you're a rule follower. I would if they told me to.
I will not ever use their media of any of them. I have a map of all the stations they have in the country, and I will be going through them, and any station that I am subscribed to that they are a part of, I'm unsubscribing to.
What do you get copyrighted for?
When I did that Susan Smith story Monday,
Uh, potato, potato.
I'm like, "You guys used footage that was 30 years old. Give me a break. You didn't make that." Shut up, Gabby. Do not
Uh,
bat my eyelashes. But anyway, back to this horrible man. He has been now found guilty of unaliving his 7-week-old daughter, Catherine. Back in 1991, they didn't charge him until I think it was 30 years to the day. I think it was 30.
wait, is this Texas?
Wisconsin. I know, Flash fan.
Oh, okay. No, I know who you're talking about now.
It is the media, and I expect nothing but the worst from them. So, he was the Silly the Clown, but we weren't able to talk about Silly the Clown. I don't know why we weren't able to talk about him being Silly the Clown, but he at some point was Silly the Clown. He unalived Catherine. He's been convicted and found guilty of that. He allegedly hurt another daughter with another woman. She ended up in the hospital with injuries. She survived. And then he injured a son with another woman. He ended up with the hospital, and they all had similar injuries. And Catherine's injuries, if you guys remember, I read through them for you. I did not make you listen to the medical, or wasn't a medical examiner. I don't
There's a
remember exactly what her name was or her title
foren-
was.
forensic pathologist, I thought.
Probably. I read through all the injuries that Catherine had, and there were a lot. So, AI found it, Tracy. That's even better.
So this was the dude that you were telling me about that like they hit the pans together and
Yes.
his baby like because you thought his
So,
baby was deaf or something like that.
yes. So, if you remember the video we saw of them, because I said, this is 30 years old. We saw the video of them in the video store, like to go rent VHS tapes. You know how we did back in the day. Some of you do, some of you don't. Flash fan, I know you don't. Had to do it. Sorry. And the baby is in her car seat, and it's summer, and she's bundled up head to toe, and she just has a very blank look on her face. And he puts his boot down towards her face, which really made me very angry to watch him do that. She doesn't move at all. And she had, according to the mom, she'd been like that all day and was not responding. She wasn't eating. She wasn't responding to anything. So when they took her home, then he took 2 pots and pans and banged them together by her. And I think she blinked. That was her only reaction. And he was like, okay, good. She's not deaf. One of the people that testified said doing that around a child, like an infant like that, should have startled them. They should have like jumped, and she didn't. She just blinked. Well, she was dying. She had the brain injury that she had was so bad, it was coming out of the bottom of the base of her skull. And I can't remember how many broken ribs she had, old ones, new ones. I
Uh,
mean, all the injuries were on the left side. I think she had 12 total.
it was 7 on one side and yeah, I think it was 7 on one side and like 5 on the other. And but those were old injuries.
Some of them, yeah. Good
Uh,
morning, Adair. How are you doing? Good to see you.
what the heck? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, but I can't see you.
Your browser has lost connection to your camera.
Mine
It's
kept
in the computer.
mine kept doing that last night. It would lose connection to chat. I don't have any idea what was happening.
You make sure that you
I
have the
was
right
watching.
camera selected.
Yeah.
Close any tisk tisk tisk.
So anyway, this wonderful man who did all these injuries to these children, and they were all similar in fashion. They all had blood coming from their mouth. They had all been alone with him. His daughter, who would have been Catherine's sister, she's going to give a witness impact statement. And she talks about how I did listen to part of hers. She talks about how he would try to come over for visitation and then bring food over that you had to warm up and um, then try to get her alone with him. But the stepdad would not. He was like, no. He knew he had to have supervised visitations. He was not going to go beyond what he was supposed to have. So it just shows he continued on his pattern of control and manipulation with these women, and he's gonna go. It's gonna disturb you because you got to remember this case is 30 years old, just being tried now, or was tried in October. That's the laws have changed. The amount of time he would get now is different from the amount of time he would get then, and you're going to be upset at the max that he can do. It's ridiculous. Hey, Dr. Bullbetter, how you doing? Carmen's playing hide and seek. All right, so we're going to start with the state, what the prosecutor wants. Everybody leaves me flash fan. It's okay. I'm okay. I, I'm a troublemaker, you know. Yeah, that video at Blockbuster, whatever they were at, I'm scared to say anything, was horrible. Absolutely made me angry immediately. And I believe he's maybe in custody in Waukesha for SA. So I don't know. I don't know how whatever he gets sentenced to here and what he has there, how long he will be in prison. He needs to be there for the rest of his life, in my opinion only. He needs to be there for the rest. I can hear myself. Thank you.
Sorry.
I don't know. I didn't watch it all the way through Flash Fan, so I'm not sure because I had to go to school. So I do not know how it ends. All right, let me know how the audio is, please. And I do have it sped up. If it's too fast, let me know.
When considering the serious nature of the defendant's offense, the defendant's character, and the need to protect the public, the state is respectfully requesting that the court sentence this defendant to 30 years in the Wisconsin state prison system. That would be 20 years on count 1 and 10 years on count 2 consecutive to count 1. These are offenses that predate truth in sentencing. And so I think it's important to note that whatever sentence the court hands down today, Mr. Schroeder will be eligible for parole after serving a fourth of that sentence. And he has a mandatory release date after serving 2/3 of that sentence. If the court follows the state's recommendation, that means that this defendant would have a mandatory release date after serving 20 years. 53 days. That is how many days that Catherine Schroeder spent on this earth. She didn't even live 2 full months. And what the evidence showed at trial is that this defendant abused that infant, Catherine Schroeder, on multiple occasions in her short life, ultimately silencing his 7-week-old daughter. She was hospitalized on July 22nd of 1991 with bruising to her abdomen, bruising that he caused. She had fractured ribs that were located after her death that were weeks old. She suffered brain trauma so severe, so significant, that not one but two medical experts who are pillars of this community talked about the severe forces and comparing it to a motor vehicle accident at a high rate of speed.
Shoo.
Yeah, it was bad. Be glad I didn't make
This
you
was
listen to it.
this defendant's daughter. He was supposed to love her. He was supposed to protect her. He was supposed to keep her safe from all the ills of this world. And it turns out the most dangerous place in the world for Katie was in his arms. He didn't just silence Katie, though. He changed the dynamics of a whole family. He controlled Christine. He manipulated her. He shamed her. He changed who she was as a human being. We are 33 years and 3 months today from Katie's death. Christine and her family waited 31 years, 1 month, and 29 days for this defendant to be held accountable. And it has become a common theme in this case to talk about the delay in charging, the delay in moving forward, as if this defendant is the victim in this courtroom. But it was this defendant that created all of the circumstances that he benefited from for 31 years, 1 month, and 29 days until this jury saw the truth and told this defendant they saw the truth. When this court is considering the seriousness of this offense, there is no one more innocent, no one more vulnerable in our community than an infant child. There is no other human being that represents us at our greatest potential. We don't know what Katie could have been in this world. She never learned to walk. She never got to go to school, learn to ride a bike, play sports, go to college, learn to drive. All those milestones that all of us take for granted when we watch children in our lives grow and develop. She didn't even make it 2 months. For Christine, she lived a life of isolation for years. This defendant was so controlling that after Katie's death, he moved in with Christine's parents and controlled that environment. There was testimony at trial from not one but two witnesses about the items that he would leave out, as if he's almost rubbing it in the family's face. That he was going to get away with it. So for years and years, Christine carried that weight. The weight of knowing who was responsible, the weight of being controlled by the very person that's responsible, until she had the strength to leave. And then, like so many victims of domestic violence, when she had the strength to come forward, when she had the ability to come forward and say, it was him, and these are all the ways that he controlled me, She was met with a system that said, well, yeah, but you didn't tell us that the first time. His very manipulation, his very control created the circumstances for which he continued to benefit, even after Christine left him. And so it took this defendant having another relationship, another abusive relationship with another woman that he manipulated and controlled, and Brenda, and having another child hurt in his care, and then having a third relationship with Nicole and a third child.
Can you stop for a second?
Yeah, because I think I read Dr. Bulbetter's message wrong. Sorry, Dr. Bulbetter. I thought you were leaving. I thought you said, I'm going to break. Like, I'm on break. Going to run away. Apologize.
So this is three, like, I don't mean this in a bad way when I say this. 3 different baby mamas, right?
Yes.
And all 3 except the last one had passed away, correct? Or did all 3
No,
pass
just
away?
one. No, just this one, Catherine.
okay.
Katie. The one he's calling Katie. Catherine. She's the only one. But
No, I'm
there was
getting two
another one.
mixed up.
There was another one that had similar injuries to her that survived because she didn't have any brain injuries like Catherine did. And then there was a little boy. They all survived.
I'm glad they did. They don't have any brain injuries, but damn.
Oh, yeah, like I said, be glad I didn't have you listen to.
Oh,
Be glad I just read it to you.
this is hard enough because with like the Snapchat I got this morning from Super
Oh,
Baby,
yeah, it's
and
awful.
then to hear this about a child, it's terrible.
I do like that this attorney still has his pin in his ear, though. He
Yeah.
rocks that thing.
This is hard.
Considering the severity of this offense, this isn't a father who lost control in one singular moment in time and shook his child out of frustration. This is a repeated child abuser. He demonstrated that with Christine and Katie. He demonstrated it with Brenda and Hunter. He demonstrated it with Nicole and Hannah. When you look at this defendant's character, he stands before the court, including these convictions with now 31, 29 prior criminal convictions, out of, again, another domestic relationship where he manipulates, where he controls, and where he violates. He now has convictions of sexually assaulting a woman in our community from Waukesha, committing a homicide in our community, committing child abuse in our community. Crimes that our legislature has defined as the most worst, he's accomplished 3 of them. It was his right to take this case to trial. It was his right to hold the state to the state's burden, but there's been 0 demonstration of acceptance of responsibility in this case. And that is another character trait that is consistent with this defendant. It's the same thing he did out in Waukesha County. It's always everybody else's fault, not him. Sure, as he sits here today, he blames the prosecutor or somehow the system.
How old is he?
I don't remember.
He was revoked twice on his sentence in Waukesha. That speaks poorly to his character and his ability to follow court rules while out in the community.
Absolutely.
With regards to the need to protect the public, there is a need for specific deterrence and punishment in this case. When this community's most vulnerable are injured to this degree 3 times.
So you hear the cell phone ringing and the judge is mad. Don't worry, it's going to happen again. At least one more time. I don't know why
So
they didn't silence their phone after.
I looked at my own phone. I was like, because I just answered a call and I was like, that's not my ringtone.
He's 55.
He's 55 and he's sitting right there.
50. The guy in the orange.
Yeah, the one in the jumpsuit.
Yeah.
I guess I just need to see his face because he looks like he's in his 20s from the back.
Yeah, but this case is 30 years old.
I know. So I know it does, like, it doesn't make sense. I'm saying he looks like the dude from cannot remember that case's name. Ruiz or something like that. You covered it?
Oh, Jose Ruiz. Yeah.
Yeah. Reminds me from him from like the back.
So this, I know this is going to shock you guys. The audio is going to cut out here in about 3 minutes. he's going to be pretty much done, but the audio is going to cut out, and then we're going to get to our first state witness. And there's 4 state witnesses. They're pretty quick, actually. And then we get to the defense witnesses. Yeah.
Press the cell phone in the gallery, you're gonna have to leave it. Cell phones are not permitted. Anyone who has a cell phone, make sure it's silenced. If I hear another cell phone go off, I'm just gonna ask that person to leave, and that person will not be permitted back.
Ever.
Mr. Torbenson?
There's a need for specific deterrence and punishment in this case.
You're gonna go to copyright court.
Nothing screams for it greater than the fact that we are here 33 years and 3 months after the death of Kate. He thought he got away with it. For years and years and years, while Katie's family, while Brenda's family, while Nicole's family has lived imprisoned by his actions, he believed he got away with it. And so there's a significant need for specific deterrence and punishment in this case. The state's sentencing recommendation also falls in line with needs of general deterrence. Our community needs to know that when our most vulnerable are injured to this degree, that there's going to be accountability from the courts, that there's going to be accountability to those who abuse the infants. They are our most precious resource. They are the future of our community, our children. The state's sentencing recommendation also falls in line, though this is under old law, with the types of sentences handed down for this conduct today. In fact, one can argue that without truth in sentencing, even taking this case to trial, this defendant's going to get less time than others who commit similarly situated actions because of old law. The state sentencing recommendation punishes this defendant. The state's sentencing recommendation tells this community that our infants are our future and are to be valued and protected. And the state's sentencing recommendation protects this community from Ronald Schroeder until he is at least 75 years old. And I shouldn't even say that because he's eligible for parole after serving a quarter of that time, which means that people are going to have to show up at hearings and speak against it. Yeah, for all those reasons.
And there it goes.
I don't
All
mean
those
to cut.
reasons. Go
I
ahead.
don't mean to cut this short. I have some time sensitive emails I gotta answer.
And you also need to go to bed.
Yeah, but I gotta do this first.
All right.
So it's nice seeing y'all. Hopefully I'll be able to hop on a little bit more. It probably won't be until after the first of the year. My schedule's not as hectic. Or it could be more hectic. But
Welcome
I
to
gotta,
being an adult.
yes, I gotta answer this stuff though.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
All right. So we are going to jump ahead until the. I'll take a pulled pork burger. Flash fan. Yeah, she actually has it off tomorrow. So I think I sent her a Cornish game hen recipe. I think they may be going to try since it's just the two of them. But yep, she wanted to jump on real quick. It's been a minute. Okay, so this first witness for the defense or for the state, sorry, is Greg Ryder. He is the husband of Catherine's mom, and I cannot remember her name for the life of me at this moment. He raised Ron Schroeder's other daughter, Allie, who will testify after him. When she was 5, she was returned to her mother. She was not in her mother's care, and from, I think, the time of this incident until she was 5. So she has some anger issues, and I don't blame her at all because completely understandable. Just everything she went through in her young life. But she's turning it around. Yeah. Yes. Oh, and the pen, the glass glare, and the like an earthquake of the cameraman. It's so good. So great. You know, they need to go to cameraman school or camera person. I don't know if it's a man or a woman.
My name is Greg Ryder, Greg Reuter. As you can see, I'm shaking as I hold this, just with anger, just with anger. Your Honor, when it comes to Ron Schroeder, I have many different emotions. Because it is not in him to be a family man, I have a wonderful wife in Christine. I could not ask for a better wife than her. Because Ron does not have it in him to be a parent. I have a wonderful daughter in Allie. I have and will continue to enjoy watching and participating in Allie growing up and now having a family of her own. When I look at my wife and daughter, I often think to myself, there should be another daughter. Instead of me enjoying and participating in Katie's life as I do with Allie, I am going to the cemetery on Katie's birthday to lay flowers. Let me tell you, Your Honor, no matter how often you go to the baby section of the cemetery, it is the most sorrowful place you will ever go. Seeing all the headstones in the baby section, often decorated with angels and storybook characters.
Hi, Bri. Did you hear your text tone? We were talking about your text tone. Thank you for gifting the membership. Dr. Bullbutter got it. There you go. Fly by on my way to bed. Well, take care, Bri. Have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you for stopping by. We were just talking about your text tone, and here you are. Your text tone is Dr. Bullbutter's text tone, and she just got your gifted membership. So thank you so much. And she said, thank you so much. But take care of yourself, Bri. Don't get run down. I know you're busy. Hello, Kelly. How you doing? Hope you are doing well. So, yeah, that's funny that the two dun text tone people now that you got the membership that he gifted. That's hilarious. Don't tell me YouTube's not listening.
It is so sad. You start to think about what might have been. Christine, she always talks to Katie and does her best to be cheerful for Katie's sake, just as if Katie was literally sitting under the tree that shades her grave. Besides sadness, as you can see, anger also creeps in. You cannot visit Katie's grave without thinking about the person who put her there, her own biological father. Katie would be 33, most likely starting her own family now. Instead, she's in the baby section of the cemetery, her grave shaded by a tree. Please, Your Honor, give Schroeder the maximum sentence, which is warranted for what he took from Katie and us, her family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker.
Is Allie. I think I can just fast forward this way. Because it doesn't, the audio will come back as she's speaking, because heaven forbid we hear the beginning. I didn't follow much of it, Flash fan.
He often plays off his great dad, husband, friend, but I've been able to call his bluff for a better part of my life. So what kind of father was Ron? Because of Katie's murder, I was taken away 2 weeks old and given to my maternal grandparents. If I wasn't going to be able to be with my mom, the next best place would have been with her parents. I know she was relieved that I would be close with family, but instead Ron thought that I should go into the foster care system. He felt that my grandparents were not trained as foster parents and I would be better there. Never mind the fact that they also had successfully raised 4 children, had a stable home, and could financially support me. I was also able to be close with my family. A real loving father should want those things for his daughter, but he knew it was just a way to control my mom and my family. It was not about what was best for me. We had visitation for 1 hour a week. This had to be supervised, and it couldn't be by just anyone, but by a licensed professional for my safety. These visitations were off and on and never consistent because Ron would intimidate and threaten these professionals to a point where they would no longer work with us. This happened about 8 different times in under 10 years. My mom would need to deal with me hating her for not being able to see my dad. I always blamed her, thinking that she didn't want me to see my dad. She also had to work to find new places for visitation. These visitations were never about spending time with me. It was a way for Ron to continue to control my mom's life and make it harder for her by turning me against her. During trial, you heard about Brenda's dog. That was not the first incident that came to mind with a pet for me. My mom did have a dog named Dusty that she was also forced to leave behind.
So if you remember, Brenda's dog was the one she couldn't take with her when she left, and we think they didn't really go into detail that he may have thrown it into the road and it was ran over.
Behind as well when she left. Ron would bring Dusty to our visits, knowing very well that the dog could not come into the building and would need to sit in the car. He brought Dusty to taunt my mom and remind her every single week that she left her dog behind, because clearly bringing the dog to these visits served no purpose. Rarely was Ron on time to these visits, and at times he wouldn't even show up, but I always waited the entire time for him. For such a loving father that the defense described, he would have made those visits a priority, but it was actually just an avenue to get to my mom. Because again, my mom would have to deal with me being crushed and upset for missing out on time with my dad. She was the one that always took the heat from everything that Ron did. Ultimately, we found Jim, someone that Ron could not intimidate, who did have my best interest in mind and was going to do everything in his power to help me. He was not there for my mom or for Ron, but for me, the child. Ron knew the rules of visitation, but he continued to challenge them to see what he could get away with. He'd bring food for us to eat that needed to be heated up, and he would try to get me to stay in the room while Jim was heating up dinner, likely just to see if the rules could be broken to use as ammunition to say that Jim was not qualified to supervise our visits. Thankfully, Jim never missed a beat. He wasn't going to allow Ron to do this again or control the situation. Throughout my childhood, Ron was not allowed to be unsupervised with me, so he was not allowed to any school functions or other events I participated in, yet he would still show up. Not because he was a loving father there to support his child, he knew what the rules were, but showing up would take my mom away from the situation and not allow her to enjoy the moment with me. This was just another avenue for Ron to control my mom and manipulate her and to take away quality time to create memories with her surviving daughter. Ron frequently requested school papers, report cards, photos, videos of school concerts, but not because he wanted them as a proud dad, but to make my mom work to gather these things, not to send them to him. It was not only a rat chase, but it was also very costly. He never talked to me about these things, asked me about my schooling or how all these things were going. It was just another way to get to my mom. As a child, I was not kind to my mom oftentimes. Ron did try to pin me against her any chance that he could. He never spoke highly of my family. My stepdad, Greg, has been here in my life since my mom left Ron. I used to call him Dad when I was a little girl until Ron told me that that wasn't okay. But Greg is the one that protected me, financially supported me, loved me, taught me about life and how to navigate. He was the one that walked me down the aisle and gave me away at my wedding.
It's as loud as it will go.
He helped me grow into the person that I am today and made sure I never felt like a child without a dad. And I can't say any of that for Ron. Less than a month after my 18th birthday, I visited Ron in prison. It was a brief visit, only lasting about 5 minutes, giving me enough time to inform Ron that as an adult, he will never have a part of my life or any contact with me again. Ron did try to speak to his innocence as usual, but I quickly cut him off and I left. I was given the opportunity to make peace with the situation and have the closure that I needed and express myself to Ron in the courts and validate myself many years ago. But for 33 plus years, my mom was not granted that same opportunity. Ron has silenced my mom for most of her life and taken away so many things and experience from her that she will never get back. I know more than anything that she just wanted to be a mom, but she would never get to experience the first year of having an infant, both the good and the bad parts. She will never get to experience her kid's first time walking, talking, etc., because she wasn't even reunited with me until I was 5. And Ron took Katie from her. I do not wish to speak to my mom's feelings. She has her own voice and that should be heard. But it was very clear to me that Ron never cared about having me as a daughter. He cared about revenge, control, and manipulation of my mom, and I was that access road to her. My biggest regret in life is how I treated my mom for many years. I was not kind. I blamed her. I resented her. Ron was able to get in my head and make me question everything, confuse me, and use that to make my mom's life.
Good morning. How are you?
My mom and I's personalities are so polar opposite, and for a very long time, I thought I was much more like Ron. I thought I was strong and brave like him. But now knowing that the hell that my mom has lived in for so much of her life, I realize that those traits that I thought were from Ron are actually from my mom. Ron is weak. He goes after vulnerable, soft-spoken people, women, and children. He is not brave. Fear is what drives him to make every move that he makes. My mom was with her abuser for 10 years, and the prosecution painted a clear picture of what her life was like for that time. But what wasn't heard or shown was that this abuse continued for another 18 years after she left. I provided him with a path to continue his abuse directly to her, but also became another pawn to use to hurt her more than he ever could alone. It could make me hurt her, hate her too, and that would crush my mom more than anything. Ron did not deny domestic abuse against women, but the defense frequently referred to Ron as a loving father. And Ron was given that opportunity with me, his second child, to be a loving father and prove that.
I think it's her because I have it boosted as high as it will possibly go. And I didn't on the first people. So I don't know. Everything is as high as it will possibly go. She's very soft-spoken. I can hear it in my headphones, but there is nothing else I can turn up. So I don't know. I can't. I'll put this there because so people don't yell at me. Yeah, if you don't have any sound at all, I don't know. I would maybe go out and come back in. She's almost finished.
That instead, he chose to use those opportunities to continue his abuse on my mom. He holds no accountability for his actions and will continue to repeat the cycle if given the opportunity, victimizing more innocent people. Your Honor, I've met some incredible people through my childhood that protected and advocated for me and used their professional skills to ensure the best outcome for me. And for that, I am forever grateful. And today I'm asking that you give my mom and Katie a voice and an opportunity for closure like I was granted by the same court system many years ago. Good will always prevail evil, and I am here today to ask for the maximum sentence be given to keep our people and communities safe, but also to let the light overcome the dark shadow that is Ron's control, abuse, and manipulation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
I think this is Catherine's grandmother.
I'm Mary Pellner.
Yeah, thank you.
Ron said it was his belt buckle. Ron said it was Christine. Ron said it was his mother. Ron said Christine's family did not love her. Ron said we couldn't do anything about it. Ron said it was none of our business. The truth has been seen and spoken here and is now known. The day Katie was disconnected from life supports and died, my heart was broken and died with her. I asked Katie to help us love each other through her loss. I told her I was sorry I couldn't save her. My sense of goodness, safety, and loving care were shattered. I was shaken to the core. I felt like a bomb had gone off and destroyed all I believed in and all I believed to be true. My faith and the golden rule. There was a before and an after. I felt like I had to protect other vulnerable family members. I felt like someone else that I loved might die. I had experienced evil. I was forever changed. Katie was hospitalized when she was 2 weeks old and lived only 7 weeks. Katie was a defenseless infant. Ron squeezed her, shook her, bruised her, and violated her. Ron took Katie's life like it had no meaning or purpose. Ron took Katie's life like it was his to take. I have seen how Ron masks evil in smiles, including being Santa, being a clown, being in the haunted house. I've seen how Ron gets pleasure out of others' pain, of being smarter or getting away with it. How he creates chaos, doubt, and fear with threats, harassment, lawsuits, and physical harm, which led to Katie's death. Ron expresses no understanding, insight, or remorse. I ask you, please do not let Ron hurt anyone again. I ask you to protect children, women, the public with your sentence. I will always remember Katie and honor Katie. Yesterday, I put her ornament on the Christmas tree. She is with me every day. I ask you, 33 years after her death, to serve justice today for our sweet angel, Katie. Thank you.
Good morning, Dill.
Fourth speaker.
So, if you didn't watch this trial with us, we struggled with audio this entire time with this courtroom, and we're still continuing to struggle with it. I don't know if it's the glass that the cameraman's behind. I have no idea. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it we don't get to hear at all. We didn't even watch closing arguments because we could not hear them, and it was pointless. But we did do the trial, so I do want to see its conclusion. I do not know who this woman is because the audio is not on until she's already speaking and has introduced herself. My guess is she is either Catherine's mother or Hannah's mother, but my guess is she's Catherine's mother because she laid a picture down beside her. But I do wish I had more control over court audio. Trust me, but I don't. And I've got everything on my end turned up as loud as it will go.
I'm comforted to know she is at peace, and I truly believe she is with me at all times. I wanted to be a mom more than anything. Katie was so beautiful and innocent. She was my whole world. She was my little girl. I never got the chance to watch her be a kid, teach her how to walk and talk, play with her, see her make her first steps. I didn't get to see her grow up, graduate from high school or college. I never got to see her get married and have kids. She never got to meet her little sister. I didn't get to be her mom. Ron took that away from me, and he took all of that away from Katie. Your Honor, Matt is my hero. What he did for Katie was so important and meaningful. He allowed me to tell Katie's story and make her short life mean something. After Katie died, I was so much under Ron's control. I still thought that my family did not love me. I did not have friends that I could confide in. I could only see them when he was present. He made me believe that he was the only one that cared about me, and he convinced me that he did not do anything to purposely hurt Katie. I believed him, so I protected him. When I became pregnant with Allie, I was so scared that I was going to lose her too. I was so sad, but also relieved when Allie was removed from our home and placed with my parents. In a way, I lost her too. Allie was with my parents the first 5 years of her life. I missed out on the joy of raising her too. Ron took that away from me. I am blessed to have a wonderful relationship with my daughter now, but it was not always that easy. You see, a child should never have to hear the horrible things that Ron did. So the only thing I told Allie was that her dad hurt me, and that was why we were not together anymore. I will never forget the words she said to me when she did start to learn a bit about him. She looked at me with the saddest eyes and said, "Why did you let me hate you all those years?" The night before I left Ron was when I realized that if I did not leave, I would probably become a statistic. But leaving was very scary. When I was driving away after having packed all of my stuff into a moving truck, I noticed an envelope on the dash. In that envelope was a piece of paper with step-by-step instructions on how to get to my new apartment and my new unlisted telephone number in Ron's handwriting. It was then I knew I was beginning a different type of fear, and I would have to protect myself and my family. It was already too late. I had become that statistic. I did not have a chance to mourn Katie's death. I had to go into fight and survival mode. I think about her all the time. I think about what she would look like, where she would be right now, what she would be doing, and what kind of relationship would I have with her. Even after he goes to prison, I will still have fear. Who will he send to harass or scare me or my family? In the beginning of our relationship, he was very charming. However, when I look back on it, I see the signs now that I never saw before. He systematically alienated me from my family, telling me that they did not love me. If you look in the courtroom today, most of the people here are my family. They are all here to support me and help get justice for Katie. They do love me and always did. Ron destroys people's lives. He doesn't care. He is selfish. He's sneaky and conniving. He is evil.
Ron does not belong out where he can hurt people. We all need to be protected from him. This is emphasized by the fact that Detective Mike Mendola told me that Ron was one of the most dangerous people he has ever investigated because he has no remorse for what he did. I got away from him. He didn't ruin me. Although I do have many reminders of my time with Ron. I have constant back pain from the time he dropped me on my neck. I also have PTSD and severe anxiety. I quite frequently have nightmares that keep me from wanting to sleep. I fight with depression every day. I lost my self-worth and struggled with confidence in who I am, always fearing others were thinking the words Ron spoke to me, that I was worth nothing, fat, ugly, and nobody cared. Although I may be stronger now, those thoughts still race through my mind every day. The day he told me, if you ever leave me, you will die a slow and painful death. It wasn't that he would kill me, he meant he would make my life miserable. And he tried that. He tried for years to do that, taking me to court over and over again and confusing my daughter, Allie, when she was very young by telling her I was a horrible person. Your Honor, you have a very important job in this trial, and I want to acknowledge that fact. I want you to understand how dangerous Ron is. Me leaving him was not the end. It was the beginning of a whole new fear and a whole new fight that has lasted for the last 28 years. Aside from this trial being about Katie's death, I want you to know that Ron has hurt many people along the way and will continue to do so if he is allowed that freedom. He is a dangerous person and he will continue to hurt people. I believe it would not be safe if Ron is to ever be let out of prison. Therefore, I ask you to impose the maximum sentence today. You have a very important job. I know you know the gravity of your role. Although I fear the backlash from me making these statements, because it has happened in the past and is the reason some are not choosing to make a statement today, Katie is worth it to me. The reality for me is that regardless of the sentence, Ron will make his presence known in my life ongoing because that is what he does. However, I also have the love and support of family, friends, and so many people that have come forward over the years. With that in mind, although Ron may think he can continue his mission of a slow and painful death to me, I do not and will not let him any longer. This is the end, and justice for Katie has been achieved. However, that justice does not mean that I still do not miss her every day. For the love I have for my daughter will ever be present. Today, after 33 years, I can finally mourn Katie and start my healing process with the support of my wonderful family and friends. I am a survivor.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go to the first defense witness. Obviously, for the defendant, you're not going to like her. I heard just a little bit of what she does. I'm not disagreeing with what she does, but I'm disagreeing with her doing it for this guy because he does not deserve it. Not after I want to read the injuries of the baby to her, and then you tell me why you're coming in and saying what you're saying. This is in Wisconsin. He's also in trouble in Waukesha because apparently everything happens in Waukesha. So yeah, it's a Milwaukee channel, but I don't remember if it was in Milwaukee. But yeah, lovely Wisconsin. And hello, Lorianne.
Back to Mr. Torbenson.
That's all from the state.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to turn to the defense. Mr. Glenn. Okay.
The cameraman. I hate this audio. I hate this cameraman. I hate this trial, Flashman. Glad it's done. Wow. Yeah, this happened. So the case was 30 years old, and then this trial took place in October, just this past October.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. Could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, I am Dr. Rosemary Scott, and I came to Wisconsin in 1992 as professor down at UW Parkside. Retired in 2004. Started a nonprofit called Prison Action Milwaukee.
Okay, before this lady angers us. So, Lorianne, this is a cold case. He is accused, well, now he's convicted of unaliving his 7-week-old daughter back in 1991. I believe the prosecutor said it's 33. It's 30 years old. He said 33 in his statement today. But yeah, so this guy apparently was a Silly the Clown. I don't know if you've ever heard of Silly the Clown in your area. We weren't allowed to talk about that. So I'm not sure the connection other than he was a clown. I don't know if he was a John Wayne Gacy clown. I have no idea. But he unalived Catherine, allegedly, hurt another daughter, Hannah, similar injuries, but she survived. She didn't have any brain injuries, I don't believe. And then there was a son, Hunter, that also he caused injuries to, allegedly. But they are both alive. I don't know if they are like alive and well. We don't see them. We did not ever see them, and their mothers that testified did not really speak about what they're doing now. It was just more what happened then. So I hope they are alive and well. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't like clowns. I mean, they're okay. It depends. I wasn't going to not watch it because I was like, don't like clowns. And then my daughter, I convinced Carmen to watch it. And she was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. So I think I cured her of her fear of clowns.
And I'm speaking from that point today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh,
Whoever has a phone in the gallery, time to go.
it sounds like it was on speakerphone. I am not sure that I don't know what they were doing, but now they're gone. The judge said it. He said it when the first phone went off. Oh, that's great, Ada. That's great. Hey, Jedi Jemima, and I always want pancakes. Good to see you. Yeah, this guy, I'm ready to see him go away. Yeah, I can hear this with my headphones, but Bree said she had it turned up all the way on her phone and she can hear it, but I've got everything. I've got it all boosted. $18,000. Nice. Nice. So I hope some of these people are better. All right, let's listen to why this woman thinks he should be set free. I did not call her the pancake lady. I said when Baker calls her Jemima, it makes me want pancakes. So whenever I see her, I think Jemima.
Now I'm just going to take a break here. Sir, I've warned the gallery a couple of times. You're going to have to leave.
Hi.
You're going to have to leave the hearing.
Hamilton.
Thank you.
Hello, Hamilton. I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. I hope things are getting back to normal for you after the storm and all the damage. I just hope that you enjoy your time with your family, Hamilton. Thank you for stopping by. It's always great to see you.
Back to you, Dr. Scott. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Dear Judge Swanson, I am founder president of Prison Action Milwaukee, PAM, and I met Ron Schroeder several years ago when he came to one of our meetings. We now include him as one of our incarcerated members and get a report about him at our monthly meetings. I am writing this letter in support of Ron obtaining release from this shaken baby syndrome murder charge. I have attended some of the hearings and was shocked at the extent of the prosecutor's case to make Ron a deliberate murder in what is referred to as shaken baby syndrome. How can this be determined after 30 years by an expert witness who was not a part of the original investigation? I was also horrified at the use of silly clown in the media when referring to Ron, and the use of past relationships to paint him as a domestic abuser. How does this genuinely relate to the case? While I clearly applaud the use of DNA to solve cold cases, especially where closure is needed for the family, this is clearly not one of those cases, since the prosecutor did not have any DNA. Moreover, Ron did not use blunt force to kill 7-week-old Mrs. Catherine. This charge was totally based on inappropriate and outdated testimony. Finally, it disturbed me that his mother was called to testify at the hearing. Her emotional, physical, and mental well-being were not properly considered, and her testimony could be overly prejudicial for the jury. Based on these issues and concerns, I ask that you please free Ron Schroeder. Thank you.
Doctor. Our next defense statement, please.
Can I do the my cousin Vinny? Everything that woman just said is bull. The list of injuries on that child are extensive for her little teeny tiny body. Give me a break. It really didn't even, they never even, one, they weren't allowed to talk about him being a stupid clown. Two, they did not, I know Shaken Baby is like, it's controversial now. I'm not even, they didn't even really talk about that. That didn't give her all the injuries on her left side only, and Hannah on her left side only, in their mouths. That he blamed, like her grandmother said, on his belt buckle, and then on his mother. I like her cause, just use it better. Like, don't use it for people like him. He does not live a good life. All the other charges he has on him that aren't in this case, he's not a good person, ma'am. I'm sorry. That was hard to listen to. And then Carmen called me. Like, Carmen. She's funny.
Sure, please take a seat, state and spell your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Jerome Dillard. I'm the Executive Director of Expo of Wisconsin, and I had the privilege of having Ron work under me and with me.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, could you state and spell your name for the record, please?
Jerome, Jerome, Dillard, Dillard.
Okay, thanks, sir. Go ahead.
As I said, Ron worked for me for roughly 3 years before he was arrested. He was working for me at the time that he was arrested. I'm here today to testify to Ron, who I know, who I work with, who I've grown to love in the work that he did. I want to say that I've never seen Ron upset. Ron always had a pleasant presence with the individuals that we work with his coworkers, and I'm just at awe that this came up. Everyone who met Ron had nothing but good things to say for Ron. The many people who he helped, who
Thank you for the super sticker, Gabby. I appreciate it. And the $2. Appreciate that too. Also, what is this guy talking about? Everybody who's met Ron likes him, has never seen his temper. Did you not just hear the people before? 18 years after she left. After the years that she was there. I think a total of 28 years of hell he has put his ex-wife through. Catherine's mom, who is now still in fear of him causing her issues even from prison. What is he talking about? I mean, good for him. I would have said no.
were coming home from incarceration, who he helped navigate the reentry process as far as getting jobs and being encouraging, being a messenger of hope. Ron displayed that for years under working for me. I witnessed it. I witnessed that. I often had great conversations with Ron. You know, what I'm hearing today is not the man that I know, without a doubt. Everyone who came in contact with Ron really admired, respect, and in many cases loved Ron for what he did in the work that he was doing day to day with Expo. I just want to say, Your Honor, there's a lot of gray areas here that I'm not understanding. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I don't work in courts, but I can't find the words for what I feel, you know. But one thing I can say, I'm hurting for Ron. What I've heard during this trial is nowhere near the man that I've known for several years. And I just ask today, Your Honor, for some leniency. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
How about no?
Thanks, Mr. Glenn.
Earthquake. Hello. Oh my gosh, this cameraman's so bad. I ran out of time, so I don't know who's next.
Yes, I am Joseph, Josephh, Ellwanger, Ellwanger.
Go ahead, please.
I am a retired Evangelical Lutheran Church of America pastor. I served as an urban pastor in Birmingham, Alabama from 1958 to 1967, and I've served in Milwaukee as an urban pastor on the north side of Milwaukee for 35 years, and in my retirement, I am serving as a volunteer pastor at Hephatha Lutheran Church on 18th and Locust. And as I hear the testimony from the relatives and the parents and the family of Katie, as I hear their story, I am reminded that domestic and child abuse is indeed a horrendous thing, never to be minimized, never to be sugarcoated, and never to be forgotten. I have known Ron only in the past 3 years that he has been in the Milwaukee County Jail. I have talked on the phone with him every 2 or 3 weeks. And I have, like Jerome Dillard, of course, have come in contact with a different person, a different Ron from what I heard described. And I don't want for one moment to minimize the hurt that apparently 3 women have felt,
About the
according to their testimony.
good.
And I know how difficult it is for domestic.
Oh my gosh. So the baby, yes, Catherine, then Catherine's mother, then Hannah, the baby, then Hannah's mother, Hunter, the son, and then Hunter's mother. All 3 of those women were abused by him. Catherine was unalived by him. Hannah was in the process of being unalived by him. And so was Hunter. I don't know what these people are doing. I do not know. I am too I'm speechless. I don't understand what is happening here. And he's having a hard time saying it, as he should. I am right there with you. I mean, what is, yeah, okay. You've known him since he's been in jail for 3 years. I know a lot. Well, I don't know a lot. I know people who have been in jail and they're perfect. They're perfect. Because they know they have to be. And then they get out of jail. And guess what? The cycle begins again. Yes, definitely presents a different version of himself to men and than women. Yep, absolutely. And like his daughter said, he picks soft-spoken women. When he was calling his wife, Catherine's mom, fat, I don't think she weighed 100 pounds. She was nothing. She had, if this jerk says he found Jesus and deserves leniency, no. Yep, you do the crime, you do the time. Yep, it's consequences for your actions. I'm right there with you, Ada. Right there with you. But yeah, yes, he is at least there, unlike Adam Montgomery. But Gabby, you called me saying bad things when you did see Adam Montgomery in the courtroom for his sentencing.
Abuse victims.
Oh, I'm about to speed this guy up.
Come out in the open and to testify. But as a pastor, I want to say that I believe in the redeemability of every human being. I would like to believe that if the testimony that I have heard this afternoon is true, and I have no reason to doubt it, I can feel the pain. I would hope and I would pray that all of us would believe in the redeemability of every human being. If that were not true, we would all be in a difficult place. And so I would like to simply say that the Ron that I have gotten to know over the phone over the past 3 years is a Ron who at least is trying to get his spiritual life together. In the jail, he has voluntarily participated in Bible study, has started a prayer group. And unless this is a huge con job,
There you go.
this is a man who is
There you go.
working on his spiritual welfare and life and concern for others. And that's at the heart of what life is all about. And so I would simply say that if we do believe in the redeemability of every human being, that any sentence would take into consideration that possibility and recognize that all of us are, in fact, redeemable.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Glenn? Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. This is a sad day. Sad for many reasons. First and foremost, our beloved Katie is not with us. No child should predecease her parents. I don't know what happened to our beloved Katie, Your Honor, but I did not.
Whew, I'm sorry. I didn't realize he was speaking. Do not throw your computers or your phones, laptops, whatever you're listening on. We're about to, but do put some boots on. I think we're about to hear a lot of crap come out of this guy's mouth. He knows exactly what happened to to Catherine. Exactly.
Not cause her death. I loved our sweet little angel more than I can put into words, and I have mourned her death deeply for the last 33 years. Your Honor, I too would sit underneath that same tree. Frequently, I would go to Katie's website and sit and talk to her and ask God why she was taken from us and cry some more, and then cry until I couldn't cry anymore. Your Honor, things have to make sense. My beloved daughter, Allie, was in my care for some time as well. When she was picked up, there wasn't a scratch on her. Haley was in my care for 3 years. I took her out frequently to the store, to our elderly friend Dorothy's home. There was never a scratch on her either. Things have to make sense, Your Honor. Going back to that tree in Katie's gravesite, Judge, those were very, very sad days. And then came September 28th, 1999. That was the date ADA Jim Griffin gave me, my then lawyer, a letter stating I would not be charged with Katie's death. That letter brought me no joy, Your Honor, only relief. Relief that I would not be formally accused of something I did not do. That relief fell in 2021 when these charges were filed. But time had passed. So much time that the original medical examiner, lead investigator, and other key witnesses have died. And material evidence was destroyed. Evidence our experts had no opportunity to examine. Evidence that was repeatedly referenced at trial. And we had no opportunity to cross-examine those crucial, but now deceased witnesses. In summary, I was found guilty of something I did not do, primarily because of two expert witnesses who had nothing to do with the case in 1991 and who relied on reports that others authored. Reports that the jury got to see in their entirety during deliberations. Reports that were not published during trial. But what if the 1991 medical examiner made a mistake? Or what if his autopsy was deficient? Which leads me to Jacob Ivey, J-A-K-O-B. Like me, Mr. Ivey was charged in 2021 with first-degree reckless homicide, specifically of shaking his infant son. He was out on $5,000 bail while I remained in jail with bail set at $350,000. According to the criminal complaint, quote, Jacob Ivey did eventually admit to shaking K.I. Jacob Ivey used a doll to demonstrate how he shook K.I. Unquote.
Here's what he did. On July 22nd, 1991, they took Katie to the pediatrician for a breathing episode. The doctor said she didn't look well. Her belly was distended and had bruising on it. The doctor had Katie admitted to Children's Hospital that day. Katie had patterned bruises on her belly. On the right side. Sorry, I thought it was the left. Excuse me for that. She had bruising in her genital area. Sores in the back of her mouth. Sores on her backside. The defendant claimed that there were no bruises on Katie that morning. They weren't noticed until the doctor saw Katie that afternoon. Katie was released on July 24th, 1991. August 25th, 1991. Katie was at home. She didn't have a pulse. She was not breathing. She didn't have a heartbeat. They called 911 at 12:18 a.m. EMS arrived 5 minutes later. CPR was started and continued until 2:50 a.m. Once she regained her heartbeat, she was admitted to the ICU. Doctors performed a head CT, skeletal exam, and chest x-ray. Katie's brain was so swollen, it was pushing the bony plates apart. She had bleeding on the surface of the brain, contusion on the frontal lobe, which these are fatal injuries. She had retinal hemorrhages in both eyes, had multiple retinal hemorrhages, Chest x-ray results, 4 healing rib fractures on her right side. The doctor said rib fractures are often caused by squeezing. Bruise from July 22nd, 1991 would correlate with squeezing of the abdomen. She said the brain injuries were resulted of either by shaking, slamming, or throwing Catherine. baby Hannah. She was admitted January 7th, 2005. Multiple bruises. Many were petechial bruises, little pinpoint bruises all clumped together on her face, eyelids, whites of her eyes, left cheek, right side of the scalp, chin, and a lot on her lower chest, on her sternum, and on her abdomen. The doctor said abdominal bruising on babies is rare. Generally, see bruises more on the face, neck, arms, and legs. Hannah had 2 areas of bruising on her right leg, similar pattern bruising on her abdomen as Katie, both on their right sides. Sorry, I crossed that out. So I'm not going to read that. Hannah had 4 healing rib fractures left side when admitted, 13 acute rib fractures, most on the right side, few on the left side, consistent with squeezing, just like Katie. 17 total rib fractures. We have 12 ribs each side, 2 long bone fractures in her right knee, 1 in the right femur knee, the other in her knee and tibia bone, so lower leg. Doctor said these fractures are caused by pulling, twisting, yanking, or a yank and twist. In case you were having any sympathy for this man at all, that is what those 2 babies went through. Catherine was 7 weeks old. Sorry if my papers are loud in my mic. They had similar injuries. They were both admitted with respiratory distress associated with squeezing. Similar fractures associated with squeezing. Both admitted with abdominal bruising, oral nasal bleeding, difficulty breathing, regurgitation. The doctor said she had never seen so many bruises on the abdomen of a baby as she saw on these 2 girls. So if you weren't angry, you probably are now. My apologies. That's what he did. Absolutely, he is a devil clown. Yeah. So, Jess, I don't know. We were not allowed to talk about the clown. So the woman that brought that up on his side of things, I'm not sure why she did or why she was even allowed to, because they were never allowed to talk about it. I think the media caught it, and it's one of those things like scary clown. So I don't know. Yeah, he was Silly the Clown at some point in his life, but they were not allowed to bring that in. No. No. Yeah, too bad it's in a different state, but yeah, he definitely needs to go to prison next to the guy that drinks his own urine. But yes, that's what this guy did here that he's trying to get out of, or that he's trying to say, wasn't me. I didn't do anything. I only have 3 kids that have similar injuries. But it's not me. It's everyone else. Oops, sorry, Flashman. Oh, absolutely. He is demonic. All right, well, let's listen to the rest of his BS and try not to punch our computers.
Mr. Ivy was not convicted despite his confession. In fact, he never went to trial.
I agree.
Coincidentally, same judge, same DDA, and same medical examiners. On April 19th, 2024, DDA Torbenson, the gentleman sitting at the table next to us, moved to dismiss Ivy's charges. According to the transcript, and DDA Torbenson, quote, Dr. Peterson's autopsy in this case was deficient in a number of ways. Dr. Peterson did not follow the National Association of Medical Examiners recommendations for child autopsies. He did not perform microbiology testing. His brain examination was deficient. He did not do any testing with BAP staining, unquote. DDA Torbenson continued, quote, there is significant evidence of blunt force trauma to this child's head, unquote. However, due to the many deficiencies in Dr. Peterson's autopsy, DDA Torbenson said, quote, the state does not believe we can meet our burden of proof, unquote. That's a lot of deficiencies in one autopsy, Your Honor. So many that Ivy never went to trial, despite his detailed confession. But what if the autopsy in this case had as many deficiencies? Or more? We'll never know, because we cannot examine Dr. Stormo, or the x-rays, or the CT scans, or the biological evidence. All things that the jurors heard during trial. Jacob Ivy is a free man. He's free because of botched science, despite his detailed confession. All I can ask for today is equal justice, equal to Jacob Ivy. Thank you, Your Honor.
Judge, can I have a brief retort on that issue?
I object.
So yeah, I don't need to hear from the state on that issue. I remember that case and presided over it. I'm going to go now to Mr. Glenn. We're going to stay with the defense. Mr. Glenn?
I would just like to note for the record the substantial differences between that case and this case, for the record.
Again, I presided over that case. Mr. Glenn?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, as an
And
officer of the court,
Ada, that was the prosecutor that was just speaking, that he wanted to say something about the case, and the judge's like, I remember, I don't need it. But Judge, you're right. It was a different case. I don't know what the evidence was in that case. I just read you all the injuries that these infants had, and I don't know what injuries that baby had or that child had. You know, I don't know what he was trying to do, because we don't have evidence there. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the judge knows it, so he didn't need to hear it. I don't know. That's because they have to prove those injuries were the cause of death and the defendant inflicted those injuries, which they likely couldn't do in the other case. Yeah, I don't know what his confession was. I don't know anything about that. There seems to be other proof here, yes, the doctor, yes, her pediatrician saw her in July, and in August, she is gone. Oh, yes, in this case, he was found guilty. Yep. And I can tell you, the doctor that, I think she was a forensic pathologist. I'm not exactly sure. She gave very detailed testimony. Her CV is long, let me tell you. It's impressive. And she knows her stuff. They could not trip her up at all. She was really good, very professional, and I think she did her job. The biggest problem with this trial was the audio, just as it continues to be, and there were things we couldn't hear. So I'm not sure if I do think CPS was called, and I'm trying to remember. That was in October, and I don't remember. I'm so sorry. Because they did take, Allie, the daughter that testified, they did take her out of the home after Hannah's death, and then she was not returned to the mom until she was 5. Yeah, not that one. Not that one that we didn't listen to. The one I didn't make you listen to that went through all the injuries that I just read. That one. All right, so this is his defense attorney. Gonna do what he can do.
Accept the verdict of the jury. I respect our system. I wake up every day and participate in our system because I truly, truly believe. That doesn't mean I'm not disappointed. It doesn't mean for the first time in I had a lot of experience. I think that means I'm old, but it's the first time in a case where I have not seen lay witnesses or law enforcement come in and say, this is what happened. We had an expert witness come in and say, I opine that this is my theory of what happened. And that was enough for the jury. But I think Dr. Sheets's opinion was consistent with intentional conduct. The descriptions that she gave, in my opinion, were intentional conduct. And the jury rejected that. The jury said this was not an intentional homicide. They said it was a reckless homicide. And I'm not trying to just rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. I think that's important here. What I also think is important is Mr. Torbenson has jumped on my comments in the beginning of the case when I said justice delayed is justice denied. And he very well retorted that in his closing argument. But what I meant by that is just what's been talked about here today. We're now here 33 years later talking about this, and clearly the pain in everyone's hearts and lives is still very strong. This case is so old that it started, the actions took place when I was just getting out of law school. We had sentencing guidelines at the time. We had a Wisconsin Sentencing Commission. I went to the old Wisconsin Sentencing Commission data to see if I could find it. One of the only felonies that they didn't have guidelines for was this one. So we now go by the Galleon standards of what we rely on to sentence an individual. Before that, there was the 1971 case, the McCleary case, and they specifically always talked about, prior to Galleon, they talked about at the time, and that was the good law at the time, was the minimum amount of incarceration to achieve the objectives of sentencing. And which then takes us back to what became the Galleon standards. So what we have here is an old, unfortunate, sad case that was tried 33 years later. I'd like to concentrate on just my argument to the court and asking for a significantly less than maximum sentence on what I think Mr. Jerome Dillard, a person who has just done miraculous work in our society, taking the people from incarceration and transitioning them into the community. One of the most important things, everybody is happy when people go to prison, but they don't seem to be around to care and help people when they get out. And Mr. Dillard has dedicated his life to that. And I think his is the most strong statement and the strongest possibility for what we can do here. So are we judging where you have to judge in the gravity of the offense, as Mr. Torbenson so rightly said, the offense. And we have to accept that. I have to accept that as an officer of court. That's what the jury said. But what we then need to talk about is the protection of the community. There is no need for protection of the community here. There may be protection that is perceived, or there might be the possibility of, but there is none. Mr. Schroeder is now 55 years old. It's not likely that he's going to be having any children or be around any children. There's things in our society. Our society is a vastly different place. Just the fact that Mr. Torbenson had the wherewithal and the ability through expert witnesses to bring this case in 2021 that wasn't brought in 1991, that wasn't brought in 1994, that wasn't brought in 1998, 99, 2004. That shows how far we've come. It also shows how far we've come in protecting our community. So there's all kinds of things that we can do when Mr. Schroeder is released from prison, and I do accept and understand that he's going to. He's been in the jail for 3 years on as high a bail as I think just about anybody I've ever represented.
So what can we do to protect the community? Is we can give him a sentence that fashions punishment, additional punishment for what he's done, and he's been punished. And I think the court understands the process is part of the punishment. It always is. And especially in this case, that it was 30 years to the day where Mr. Torbenson, knowing full well where Mr. Schroeder was, sent a warrant out for his arrest and filed a criminal complaint. To have that over your head for that time, even, 88 Griffin writing that letter back in September of 1999, stating that he wasn't processing that. And I know that wasn't you're not charged forever, but it was after an exhaustive investigation. So given that and having that out there all of this time is a punishment to Mr. Schroeder. The last 3 years has been a punishment. The case going forward has been a punishment. But this case changed dramatically when the other act's evidence was allowed in. And I don't want to make light of any of those allegations in there, and I want to respect people's opinion to share that. I share Reverend Elwinger's comments about those feelings and those ideas that they shared with the court, but I also share the redeemability part of it. When those other acts evidence came in, the jury, unlike this court, doesn't wear a robe and can't be thoroughly insulated from that emotion. The court saw me on multiple occasions during that trial try to say, you can't use the other acts to convict him. I flashed up on the screen jury instruction 275, and I begged them and I implored them to do the impossible, to ignore that. You just can't. But that was a strong part of this and component of this prosecution, and a strategic one and a wise one by Mr. Torres. But I have also gone back and known this case now for multiple years, and if part of it was the delay was because of my medical condition, which I won't go into further. But I've gone back and I've read from 2007 the conviction in 2007 CF 496 in Waukesha County. Judge J. Mac Davis, a great jurist out in Waukesha County, he took into account. I've read that sentencing transcript. I've read it over and over. He took into account everything that was said in this trial regarding all of the other acts evidence, and included it into a rather lengthy prison sentence in that case for Mr. Schroeder. It was in the PSI. It was brought up by the District Attorney Schimmel at the time, and it was considered by the judge. So I'm going to ask the court again to try to lift itself up above that. Again, I know that I'm asking a difficult thing, to stick to what we're dealing with here. And what we're dealing with here is a serious case. But it was 33 years ago. And I think we go back to Jerome Dillard's comments about Mr. Schroeder. Mr. Schroeder is a vastly different human being today than he was then. And the best evidence we have of that is the 18 months from March of 2020 to August of 2021 that Mr. Schroeder was actually out in the community, released on extended supervision and out in the community working. And the first thing he did was he engaged himself with a person like Jerome Dillard to help other people similarly situated who don't have the resources and the ability that Mr. Schroeder did. And he worked.
Okay, so just looked up Jacob Ivey's case. She says, I looked up Jacob Ivey's case. It was dismissed without prejudice, which means the state could always bring it again. Also, the facts were very different. Ivey got up in the middle of the night, did a feeding, and burped his son. The next morning, he noticed his breathing was off and was lethargic. Eventually called 911, denied shaking at first, and later confessed. Yeah, they're a little different. Also, this defendant here was convicted in 2008 and sentenced to 6 years in prison in Waukesha County for SA of a girlfriend and taking numerous nude photos of her while she was sleeping or unconscious. He really should be out in the community. It's right, sir? Like, oh, what are you talking about? I know he's doing his job. I know. And when I saw it was a 30-year-old cold case, I had to tell you, I was skeptical. But Dr. Sheets, when she listed all those injuries, no.
worked diligently at that. He testified at committees. He went to went way out of his way. Things that you wouldn't normally see out of what is an alleged self-centered narcissist. He continued to help others on a daily basis. And that's why all of these people have come to support him all the time. Now, granted, they have only known him for this short period of time. And
Exactly.
Reverend Ellinger, as wonderful a human being he is, he testified about the limited exchanges and the opportunities he's had to get to know Mr. Schroeder. But the proof was when he was out there. Until that arrest warrant went out and he was arrested for something that happened 30 years ago to the day, he was leading a very positive life, influencing positively the lives of others who didn't have the resources or the ability to advocate for themselves. And I think that's the best way to do it. And so while Mr. Torbenson wants 20 and 10, I think a 7 and 5 recommendation is doable. I think it's well within the law. I think it's supported by the McCleary factors back in 1971 that were the law in 1991. And I think it's supported by the Galleon factors that were adopted in 2004. Again, 55 is a lot different than 25. The proof is in the pudding of what he has done since then. I know people will take issue with him not taking responsibility for it and accepting the verdict. I think as I have to as an officer of the court, I tried to point out some of the interesting things that I take issue with, but I asked the court to adopt that sentence for Mr. Schroeder and adopt it because he has shown that despite all of his history, when he was out in the community, trusted with being a responsible citizen, a responsible taxpaying citizen, he was able to do it. He was able to do it in a positive fashion. And I think we have to give him credit for that or we fail as a system. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you. All right, everyone. That concludes both parties' presentations. I'm going to take a couple of minutes off the record and I'll explain the sentence in just a moment. Yes, Mr. Glenn.
Where'd he go? I just wanted to say, how about no? He has hurt. One's dead. 2 were injured. Those are the ones we know about. Who knows what else is out there in his time out doing whatever he's been doing since he got out in 2014. Catherine died in 91. He had the suspected abuse of the girlfriend's son in 98 and the daughter, Hannah, that I read you the injuries that were similar to Catherine's in 2005. And in 2008, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison. So he's been leading a great life. Not sure how long his pause is here. I didn't get to this part because I was doing copyright school. That will never just get old. It will never get old. Whatever. Ever. Oh my gosh, this cameraman. Oh, whoops. I'm not telling my dad. I'm not telling on myself, Gabby. Like, see, Dad, I'm not a rule follower.
Okay, everyone, let's get back on the record. So I'm going to start with what are the mandatory parts of the sentence. Mr. Schroeder, these are aspects of the sentence that are mandated by state law. First, with regard to these 2 felony convictions, you may not possess a firearm at any time in the future. Section 941.29 of the statutes makes it another felony for anyone who has been convicted of a felony to ever possess a firearm, carrying with it its own 10-year period of imprisonment or $25,000 fine or both. Also, you cannot vote in any election until your civil rights are restored. and you are required to provide a DNA sample to the state crime lab and to pay a DNA surcharge for each of these 2 counts. You are advised that if this conviction is reversed, set aside, or vacated, you may qualify to have that DNA sample data expunged if you meet other conditions under statute. Now, in determining a sentence, the court looks at certain factors, and I want to thank all the speakers today for those who address those factors. First, we look at the gravity of the offense, and here we have 2 offenses committed on the same date 33 years ago. I'm frankly a little bit appalled that individuals would come to sentencing and challenge the conviction. Mr. Schroeder, I understand you're still asserting your innocence. I will just say there was a week-long trial. In fact, it extended for more than a week in this case. A week-long trial in which the state introduced an extremely large amount of evidence. It was an amount of evidence, including exhibits, testimony. This evidence persuaded 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Schroeder committed these crimes. If you are not willing to accept that verdict, that is certainly your choice, but you don't get to come to court and mischaracterize the evidence or pretend that the evidence doesn't exist. That evidence is part of the record in the case. It was made part of the record at the trial. And in particular, if you weren't here for the trial, you shouldn't be commenting on that evidence because you didn't see it or hear it. So I was persuaded at the trial, and in post-conviction motions, the court entered judgment for the state based on the jury's verdict. Mr. Schroeder, you brought up the Ivy case. That is a tragic case. It is a case where the state decided they did not believe they could meet their burden of proof. In that case, the state moved to dismiss. The court granted their motion. The court is not going to force the state to try to prove a case they believe they can't prove. It would be a disservice to all the individuals involved. That case has absolutely nothing to do with your case. In this case, the evidence was not limited to the reports that dated from the date of Katie's death. It included photographs, multiple reports, and witness testimony, all of which, frankly, supported the state's case. This was a case, I think, where the state presented a very, very strong case, again, which persuaded 12 jurors to reach a unanimous verdict. Dr. Sheets' testimony was very persuasive. I agree with Mr. Glynn that it reflected intentional conduct, but I think the jury's verdict was entirely consistent with Dr. Sheets' testimony in that there was not evidence here that Mr. Schroeder intentionally killed Katie. Instead, what he did was he injured her so badly through his reckless conduct that he caused her death. That is not an intentional homicide, and in fact, that is not what he was convicted of. He was convicted of first-degree reckless homicide, which was entirely consistent with the evidence. Now, the gravity of the offense, therefore, here is the causing the death of a child through extremely reckless conduct. And that included not only Katie's death, but the child abuse that's alleged in count 2. This was an aggravated crime. Katie was a premature infant who was incredibly vulnerable. Mr. Schroeder certainly knew of her vulnerability because she had been in and out of the hospital for her entire short life. And to treat her in a way that injured her, it caused additional injuries after she'd been to the hospital already, shows that he had clearly reckless disregard for her life. And when we talk about the duties of a parent, this doesn't, there are just simply no words for a parent who can injure a premature infant so badly that she dies of her injuries. So in terms of the gravity of the offense, we're at the top end of the state sentencing factors. Secondly, we look at the defendant's character and his rehabilitative needs. Again, here, I think there is some serious disregarding of the record Mr. Schroeder has compiled while he's been out in the community since 1991. There's the 2007 conviction in Waukesha. That is a very serious case. Mr. Schroeder was sentenced to prison. He was revoked in 2018. That's relatively recent. Now, what that tells the court is Mr. Schroeder actually has done quite poorly when he's been on supervision in the community and has violated the law in other ways that still reflect a commitment to punishing or hurting people who live with him. This is a record of domestic violence that frankly is among the most serious I've ever seen while working as a judge. Mr. Schroeder has very significant rehabilitative needs. He has still refused to accept any responsibility for Katie's death. That's clear from his comments. And that is despite the fact that the evidence here shows very strongly that he caused Katie's death. There is no remorse. There is, I would say, only minimal cooperative conduct when it comes to Department of Corrections programming. The history here is one, again, of repeated domestic violence. When I then look at the need to protect the public, that is significant here because there are other women and children in our community who might be placed at risk if Mr. Schroeder were to develop a relationship with those women or their children. This is not a probation case. It would unduly depreciate the seriousness of these offenses if probation were granted. The state's sentencing objectives begin with protection of the community. Second, we look at rehabilitation of the defendant, and last, deterrence. And the court has to deter both the defendant from this type of conduct as well as others who might be engaging in that type of conduct. Now, this is an unusual case in terms of its age, so we are not under the current sentencing law. I will attempt to conform the sentence as best I can to current sentencing practices. Based on these convictions, the court finds that Mr. Schroeder is not eligible for any early release programming, either through the challenge incarceration program that's based on his age, or for the substance abuse program. There's no evidence here of substance abuse. And also, this conviction, I believe, is not eligible for release to that program. The court is ordering well, there's no restitution claim here, so the court sets restitution at 0. The court is not imposing any fines. The court does order Mr. Schroeder to pay all court costs, mandatory surcharges, and assessments. These are the mandatory amounts required by state law. The court directs the DOC to collect any monetary amounts ordered today at a rate to be determined by the DOC from Mr. Schroeder's prison funds. Any monetary amounts that remain unpaid when Mr. Schroeder is released from confinement are to be paid as a condition of extended supervision. Any monetary amounts that remain unpaid when the sentence is completed are ordered reduced to a judgment against Mr. Schroeder for that unpaid balance, and collection can then proceed as provided by statute. Now, I do want to quote Pastor Ellwanger. I agree with the concept of redeemability, and I think every individual is redeemable. I would hope that our Department of Corrections helps individuals who are in their custody to work towards that goal, and I think they do. But prior to redemption, there needs to be some acceptance of responsibility and accountability, and that has not happened in this case. There was, again, 33 years between this offense and today's sentencing. So that accountability has to come first before we get to redeemability. For those reasons, the court is ordering the sentence requested by the state here. As to count 1, the court is ordering a 20-year sentence. That is consecutive to any other sentence. As to count 2, the court is ordering 10 years consecutive to count 1. Now, these are, as we've already discussed, under the old sentencing rules, not under truth in sentencing. So the Department of Corrections will administer this sentence and determine when Mr. Schroeder can be eligible for release. With respect to extended supervision, the court is leaving those conditions to the discretion of the DOC with certain exceptions. The court does order no contact whatsoever with the 3 mothers of the children who were involved, whose medical records were involved in the case. Their first names are Christine, Brenda, and Nicole. No contact whatsoever with those 3 women. Also no contact with any of their children. No contact with any children under the age of 16. Are there any issues I haven't addressed before I get to appellate rights? Mr. Torbenson?
No.
Mr. Glynn?
No.
Okay. All right. Mr. Schroeder, you do have the right to appeal. Any notice of intent to pursue post-conviction relief must be filed with the clerk of this court within 20 days of sentencing. Your lawyer must continue to represent you until your decision to seek post-conviction relief or not is made. If you wish to seek post-conviction relief, Your lawyer must file that notice within this 20-day time period. You will receive a written explanation of determinate sentence. Now, this form, unfortunately, is not entirely descriptive of the sentence you are receiving because the form applies to current sentencing practices, not the sentencing practices under prior law. I've done my best to conform that form to current practice, to old practices as currently being executed by the Department of Corrections. All right, everyone, I want to thank you all for your comments. This has been an extremely difficult case for those who are individually interested in the case. I am going to ask the different groups to leave separately. So I'm going to ask the family of the victim to leave first, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Schroeder's supporters to remain until those supporters and family members have exited the courtroom. You guys can all to maintain some separation in the courthouse. The court is adjourned. Thank you.
So Flash Fan, I don't think he could give him life based on the old sentencing guidelines that he kept talking about. I think he would have had a completely different sentence if the case wasn't so old, if I understood that right. Because he said he can't use the truth in sentencing guidelines because they weren't in place until after this crime happened. So he will be sentenced, like the prosecutor said, even sentenced to 30 years, he, I think, has a mandatory release date after 20. I have no idea where he is with other charges, but the judge is correct. He has a long list. You're welcome, Ada. Enjoy your lunch. I do not know how much they make in jail. It used to be like 50 cents an hour or something crazy. But he didn't get many things assessed to him like normal. So he got out easy. More on the Ivy case from Jess. Further information on Ivy. Initial testing in the hospital found a bacterial infection that could have caused the issues, but because the autopsy wasn't done properly and certain evidence wasn't preserved, they couldn't prove what the actual cause of death was, the shaking or the infection. That is a huge difference from this one with the injuries listed. Exactly. Thank you for that, Jess. I appreciate it. But yeah, huge difference. The Ivy case is what the defendant referred to when he gave his statement of this guy admitted to shaking his son. I think it was a son. The son passed away, but he wasn't charged. And what Jess just said is why he wasn't charged. The autopsy wasn't done properly. Certain evidence wasn't preserved, and they didn't know he had a bacterial infection, so they didn't know what was the cause of death. So they couldn't bring the case. And that's why the judge, they're not similar. I can't force somebody to try a case. The defendant was Jacob Ivy, and the son's name was Kai Ivy. It's still sad, even that alone is a sad case, no matter what the outcome was. If his dad got away with it, then it happens and it sucks. I don't know how else to put that. I'm not trying to be cold towards Kai at all. But if you can't prove somebody's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, I think they made the right decision to not try it. This guy, they had it. It took a long, long time to get it here. And he thought he was home free when they told him in 1999 they were not going to charge him with this case. He thought he was done. This prosecutor said no. So I'm not sure about all that. I don't know what happened from 1991 to 1999, 1999 to 2021. I have no idea. but something, and somebody saw something, and I think I'm glad they did. Because I wasn't sure when I saw what this case was about. I wasn't sure. Like, how in the world are you doing this? Definitely still sad, but kind of sounds like a new parent with little support from around him. The bacterial infection would have been more than enough reasonable doubt, especially for a 2-month-old. True. Absolutely. And absolutely sad. Sucks. I don't know how else to put it. It's awful. And like I said, I was wondering, like, what do they have on this guy after 30 years? Why did it take so long? And then they were like, here it is. Like the judge said, we didn't get to hear it all because we couldn't hear crap, but they laid out a week because they didn't put on a defense. There was I think his mother was the only one to testify on his behalf from the defense. And that was it. They did not, and I know they don't have to, but they did not put on a defense. The state gave a ton of evidence. And I read the most important, in my opinion, evidence to you. The video that we saw of her, when you hear her injuries, and then Dr. Sheets talked about the video and what was happening to that poor baby at that time and why she was just staring off into space. She was dying and probably in horrific pain and couldn't do anything about it. And he puts his boot over her face. I think they got it right. And I think sorry, I was looking at a woman. I think he is going right to where he needs to go. Just kind of wish he probably could have went there for a longer period of time. So he'll still be 75 years old when he gets out. So hopefully there won't be any more kids in his future. You never know, though. When I was growing up, the scandal in my small town in Nebraska was that a 70-year-old man got my band teacher pregnant. So you go, buddy. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know. Dr. Dietz. I didn't say Dr. Dietz. Sorry if I was talking too fast. Yeah, if he survives Gen Pop, because they don't like people like him. And his record is quite long for child abuse. It was scandalous. In my little town, that was huge news. It was huge news. It was big news that those two were even an item because she was young, she was pretty. And it was even it was even bigger news when she popped up pregnant. Thanks. When you're in a small town, that's just what happens. You don't have much else to talk about. All I could think about is like, you're gonna be like 90 when your kid graduates high school. She did take a pregnant pause. I think I am going to take I guess I'm getting a pregnant pause later. I'm gonna see old super baby's gonna come over for a little bit. In a little bit. I don't know when. They haven't told me yet. So I can give me my list. So I have lawn crime. Looks like it's about 25 minutes long for the Lori Shaver. Does that sound about right for anybody that watched it? Oh, there she is. There she is. All right. If Tracy thought mine was TMI, Jess, she's going to love yours. Men can basically produce until they pass unless something goes wrong with their bits. Yep. I'm going to back this back down since I had it blasting. I know you guys didn't know that, or probably couldn't tell. But yeah, here. Oh, the letter she wrote. I have not seen that. I I figured you enjoyed that, Tracy. Yes, Jess missed out last night. Flashman, I didn't sleep because I was thinking about all your questions, and it's really hard to come up with the answers on the fly sometimes. I was like, I'm not sleeping. All right. Here she is, the woman who thought she would get away from it, everything, because she buried him in the backyard under her fire pit. Holy, that is very long. 14 pages. She's trying to be like Sarah Boone. Is it professing her innocence? Is that what it's doing? You did break my brain. Because I was like, you asked me questions and I couldn't come up with the answers really fast. And Puddletown too. And I thought, I know the answers to these questions. It's just coming up with them while you're thinking and reading. And Beckett was hilarious. So it was a lot going on in my mind. Thank you, Jess. I don't know where she's at. She sometimes pops in and out of here. All right, let's see this beauty. I don't know if I need to turn it back up.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're present in case number 2020 CF 2361, State of Florida versus Lori Shaver. With the parties present, please identify themselves for the record.
Nick Ruscio on behalf of the state.
Rich
Buckman for the state.
Jeffrey Wiggs on behalf of Lori Shaver.
Lori Filmer, previously known as Lori Shaver.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you give today shall be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, and we are here for sentencing today. All right, please proceed.
Here I do have a copy of the score sheet.
I've reviewed it.
All right, any objections to the score sheet, Mr. Wiggs?
No, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, there are a couple of victim impact statements, and one of the victim's family members would like to give a statement here.
Certainly. Please come up to the podium. Please state your name for the record.
Brian Douglas Shaver.
All right, please proceed, sir.
All right, dear Judge, the senseless and tragic murder of Michael Douglas Shaver has left an irreparable void in all of our lives. The devastating loss has not only taken away a beloved family member, but also deeply impacted his two innocent children. Michael Shaver was a son, a brother, a father, an uncle, and a friend. He was a kind, loving, and humorous soul. He cherished his family and friends more than anything. Despite the challenges he faced, he always found a way to connect with those he loved. However, his life was tragically cut short at the young age of 33. Lori Shaver's manipulative and narcissistic behavior isolated Michael from his family and friends, depriving us of a chance to be part of his life. Her actions not only led to his tragic death, but also perpetuated a harmful narrative that tarnished his memory and caused further pain to his loved ones, especially his children. Her actions did not stop the day she took his life and buried him within sight in her backyard. She continued to make choices that would impact both Michael's memory and the people around him for years to come, from stealing his identity, impersonating his likeliness, marrying a new husband over his body, and putting the weight of a terrible tragedy on the shoulders of his daughter, having her to maintain that lie for years. Lori Shaver's actions not only ended Michael's life, but also stole his future. She deprived him of the chance to live life to its fullest, raise his children, spend time with his family, experience personal growth. For the past 9 years, she has walked free, while we have endured the pain of his absence and relived the events through the investigation. She has witnessed the growth of his children, all while shaping their perspective of him with lies and distortions. These stolen years can never be returned, and the void left in our lives is immeasurable. The impact of Lori Shaver's actions will forever scar our family. We mourn the loss of Michael and grieve for his children, who has been robbed of their father's love and guidance. The loss of Michael is a wound that will never fully heal. While justice may offer some solace, it cannot restore the life that was stolen or mend the broken hearts left behind. Judge, we thank you for your time and consideration as you make this sentencing judgment regarding the heinous crime against Michael Douglas Shaver from the Shaver family. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, I do have two other statements from friends of Mr. Shaver. First being Randolph Bean. To whom it may concern and all.
Object to hearsay statement during sentencing hearing.
Hearsay is admissible in sentencing, Judge.
Okay, overruled. Please proceed.
To whom it may concern and all who may have need to view it. This document is an impact statement against Lori Shaver, who murdered her husband, Mike Shaver. Forgive me if it's too blunt or angry as I cut through my own anger to most clearly express my points. I beg your tolerance in this not being the typical statement going on at length about how much I miss my friend. I'm that annoying OCD guy that can't turn his mind off, notices everything and annoys everyone over details without trying to. I'm also the guy that's almost impossible to impress, so my feeling of Mike's merit is a rare thing for me to award anyone or thing. I can assure you I'm a lot nicer to talk to than read serious statements written by. Please bear with me as this document is at least now far shorter than the original 63 pages it started as.
Oh.
First, the victim himself, Mike Shaver. I knew and worked with him as a member of a very elite unlimited class air racing team for the most highly modified P-51 Mustang in history. Through that, I came to know that Mike had been a working commercial pilot at the start of a career, flying local commuter flights in a turboprop aircraft. This requires the rating, the hours, and also know of both piston and gas turbine engines to qualify for the job. He obtained his rating initially with financial help from his parents at Lori's insistence, and to separate from friends and family so as to control him, she demanded they move to Florida. He did so and was unable to find regional work as a pilot and thus took a job maintaining monorails at Disney. There he was noted as a great and reliable worker. Maintaining his interest in aviation, he volunteered for the PM race team. While not a certified AP, he is allowed under FAA rules to work on experimental class of aircraft. I worked with him on things as diverse as a complete rewire of aircraft, rebuilding landing gear, custom constructing a carbon fiber canopy to reduce drag, and of course, internal work on the Rolls-Royce Griffin engine. This Mustang is only the third one so modified, and the other two were destroyed while racing. As a machine, he worked on literally the most advanced unlimited class racer ever built. He was not some ignorant flunky stuck with a dead-end job as a mechanic just out from under the shade tree of skill. I say this to illustrate that he was incredibly intelligent. At our last races, Mike, myself, and one other discussed forming a team for the IF1 class, known as the entry level to air racing. Mike, given his small stature, would have also been the pilot. He had agreed to pursue the idea of friendship and tasks friendship and shared tasks impressed me that he was an incredibly intelligent and funny person. You couldn't meet a nicer guy. I enjoyed getting to know him and look forward to the future friendship and plans we shared, all now shattered and gone. As to him being a person and parent, I can say that I've never met a man so worried about the welfare of his children. He endured all, including being murdered in hopes of protecting them. As a result, he was a badly battered husband, always bearing the brunt of Lori's outbursts and physical attacks. The court had only one instance to work with, and a bad one at that. Just after the event, I asked Mike why he went to jail when she attacked and overwhelmed him. The photos clearly showed him with bleeding head trauma, torn clothing, and disoriented look. His statement to me was, the police showed up and I told them that she had threatened all of us with her gun. I was scared she would hurt the kids, so I tried to take it away from her. She hit me repeatedly in the head with the gun, ripped off my pocket trying to get the truck keys, and broke a bunch of other stuff too. The police listened to her and seemed to think I was abusing her and told us that they had to arrest somebody as it was a domestic violence case. I thought it would be best to protect the kids by not having their mother go to jail, so I agreed to be arrested. It was noted in the trial he had moved into a room at the hangar without explanation. He did so to remain close to the children as possible. Literally everyone on our team urged him to leave her ASAP, but he realized that domestic violence arrest would easily put the kids back in our care. Based on that, he tried to create a peace with her and moved back in. When I asked why, which nobody else did, he told me, I want to be there to protect my kids. If he had any failing, it was in self-preservation. You can't survive for yourself. You can't be there for anyone else. That's why I say I've never seen a man more dedicated to his children than Mike. If spirits exist after this life, I'm sure his is gutted at the lies and brainwashing used on his daughter. Those of us who know them all 100% know that things stated she claimed to have done so were impossible simply based on her tiny size at the time. He was a smart, funny, caring, and wonderful man. The world is truly a worse place without him in it. I think of him often, and the pain and frustration of his murder leaves me angry every time. Time has not lessened the pain. Since Mike's murder, an openly diverse group of his friends have reached out and found each other. For example, his long-term middle and high school girlfriend described how hurt she was that Lori stole him away from her. She wasn't angry at him, in fact, maintaining that he was an awesome guy and she wished she had never lost him. Even then, she feared for his safety and she was proven right. So many you will never hear from miss him. Mike himself was very guarded, but the small amount of information he admitted proved yet again Lori cares for nobody and will do whatever it takes, including murder, to please herself. I implore and demand you impose the harshest sentence that can be constructed. Punish her for the murder and the roundabout chaos and pain she caused all around her. It isn't about my personal feelings of loss. Those compose only a tiny part of the reason for the harsh sentence. It's about repeating the mistakes of so many legal system failures I have seen. Mike, a good man, was done so very wrong, and all the other abused husbands with no place to turn for help, you were their only chance. Randolph Bean. Also have a statement from a Scott Skrzyzewski.
It's just for the record, same objection as to the hearsay and the opinion testimony at this.
Overruled.
Your Honor, Lori Shaver has demonstrated multiple times her lack of remorse or resentment pertaining to the crimes she has committed. Lori has willingly and without one single ounce of guilt damaged her children mentally by influencing them through instruction and uttering false statements since she murdered Michael in a feeble attempt to mask her crimes. Lori assumed Michael's online identity, posing as Michael to myself, his other friends, and family to gain additional privilege of prolonged freedom, lengthening the time before she was able to be held accountable for her crimes. We will never get Michael back, and her family will never get his children's innocence back. Lori's inhuman, ruthless, and savage actions, and especially her lack of any repentance, indicate that she will never change. If the time and place ever come where Lori will be returned to society, that she deliberately and knowingly tried to deceive and attempt to falsify her innocence, I fully expect she will again incite bedlam and turmoil with whomever she associates with. She expects life to be a one-way street for her and in her favor. She has proven that when things do not go her way, there is no limit to the actions she is willing to take. I humbly and respectfully ask the court to impose the harshest sentence that is possible. Thank you, Scott Skrzycki. Your Honor, I do want to say that there have been various references within these victim impact statements and also in the pre-sentence investigation that talk about the fact that Ms. Shaver, now Ms. Filmer, has shown a total lack of remorse for her actions. I want to be clear that as far as any statements about that lack of remorse, especially from the PSI and the statements that I made, have nothing whatsoever to do with her expressing her innocence, maintaining her innocence, asking for a trial, asking for the jury to determine what the facts of this case are. That would be completely inappropriate and not an appropriate thing for the court to take into consideration for sentencing. When I talk about her lack of remorse, I refer to the actions that she took after her killing of her husband and all of the actions that she took to help cover that up. That includes lying to friends and family members, acting as if Michael Shaver was still alive, knowing full well what she had done. And those lies and manipulation extended not only to friends and family members of Michael Shaver, but his own children. That is, when I discuss her lack of remorse, that is what I am discussing. And that is something permissible for the court to consider her actions leading up to her arrest. Ms. Shaver is quite possibly the most manipulative defendant I have ever had charged with murder, and the extent that she went to cover her tracks deserved the harshest penalty, and I ask for life in prison on this case.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Wiggs.
Yes, Judge, I'll just briefly summarize some of the evidence, ask the court to consider such evidence that the court heard before it throughout the trial. I'd point out to the court that Ms. Shaver was not convicted of an accessory, as the state may allude to, but we heard evidence in this manner. There was digital evidence that was presented by the state. In advance of trial, I'd moved to exclude the digital data inasmuch as Facebook did not have any connective links as to the evidence, could not be linked to an IP address, a user, a location, or a device. Likewise, there was no business record certificate offered by the state to authenticate the records. Instead, they just simply declared the records did not exist at this time. Despite that, the court allowed such evidence. Likewise, there was, aside from a lack of a connective link between Lori Shaver and any physical evidence, what seemed to be the body of the state's case, there was a card that was a couple cards that were testified to. Defense counsel moved to exclude that, claiming that there was no handwriting analysis that had been conducted, and I think that's Proctor, that was in my motion, and nobody that could testify as to the authentication of the handwriting. That was read into evidence by a witness, wasn't simply ushered into evidence, but was read into evidence. And that had no connective link offered during the trial to Lori Shaver. Likewise, there was reference to a sale of guns. Not one single gun that the state elicited testimony about had any actual involvement in the crime itself. I'd filed a pretrial motion on that to exclude it. And I think the relevant case was a case, I believe it was Agathis, that should be excluded. A case was appealed and reversed on that same basis itself. There was a gun that was actually entered into evidence by the state. Expert claiming that it had no connective link. It was just the type of gun. It had characteristics of the gun. No different than taking a picture of a white man or a black person leaving the scene of a crime and say he was this color. That was the connective link that the state relied upon. It had no probative value in this matter. Simply offered this prejudicial impact. Court will remember there was no connective link between the gravesite and Lori Shaver. There was no DNA. There was no any clothing, anything that had a connective link to Lori Shaver the form of DNA, hair samples, or anything in that matter. The state, you may recall, tried to downplay this. I think it was Mr. Buxman questioning the witness saying, well, you're not surprised that there's no link between that given the degraded condition of the straps that were found in the grave, ignoring the fact that possibly there was no connective link, being there was never at any time any DNA or evidence on those straps. The same way with the tarp. There was a blue tarp. Reminded the court that I brought out on cross-examination. The state did not take it upon themselves to do any kind of forensic analysis to see who, if anybody, had purchased that tarp, nor did they do any DNA analysis on that tarp to see if it had been drug across the ground or how it got to the gravesite. I would bring that to the attention of the court. There was also testimony, unrefuted, from the medical examiner that there were buccal swabs connected to Michael Shaver, which indicated that there had been some force or trauma at a point post death or after the death of Michael Shaver. It was testified, and the court heard testimony that the boyfriend at that time, Mr. Townsend, had, they believe, removed the body only to return it later. There was no evidence that Lori Shaver had moved the body, and that could not be accounted for. That was brought out on evidence. It was likewise objected to throughout the trial continuously as to the form of the introduction by the state. I brought to the attention of the court that the state entirely relied on circumstantial claims of evidence. And that would be, it was always everything the state declared was going to be a timeline link, anything that came into evidence, whether it was the gun, whether it was the sale of guns, whatever it was, that would be their claim. I presented to the court a case, Smith versus Carlisle, which went back through the history of circumstantial evidence and reinstated a case called Volker. And there the Supreme Court had declared if the state's going to rely on circumstantial evidence, there must be a foundation for that evidence that's not subject to any other reasonable interpretation except that of guilt. At no time did the state throughout this trial, not one single time, did they establish any foundation upon which these circumstantial claims were based. And that instead they argued to the jury in their closing, it was just a totality of these circumstances that they could hang their verdict upon. Now, we understand there's a minimum mandatory of 25 years in this case, Judge, and the court can impose a life sentence in this case. Based on the evidence, the undisputed facts, as I've just brought to the attention of the court, we'd ask for the minimum mandatory of 25 years be imposed against Lori Shaver. That would be our recommendation to the court at this stage. And Ms. Shaver, I know in the PSI, she had sent the court a letter as to her feelings, impressions, and her sentiment about the matter. I presume it's made a part of the record for purposes of the sentencing, and I presume that the court has reviewed that as well.
I have reviewed the letter, Mr. Wiggs.
Thank you, Judge.
Is there anything further?
Just, and I sympathize with the family that's here. I know they have heartfelt feelings about it and emotions. It's not testimony in the sense that it's offered anything to establish the state's case. And I am sympathetic as to the scenario that they found themselves. The court would be reminded, though, and also in this case, that there was evidence of physical abuse by Mr. Shaver. And there was nothing that really contradicted that in this trial. I'd bring that to the attention of the court as well. And I think all these facts would justify at least the minimum mandatory imposition.
All right. Does your client wish to address the court?
Do you need 1 second? Okay. No, she doesn't, Judge.
Okay. Is there anything further?
Nothing further from the defense.
Anything further from the state?
No, sir.
Please present your client for sentencing.
I wanted to hear from her. Dang it.
All right. Lori Shaver Filmer in case number 2020 CF 2361, having been found guilty by a jury of your peers of the offense of murder in the second degree with a firearm and having been adjudicated guilty of the offense of murder in the second degree with a firearm, the court hereby sentences you to a term of life in the Florida Department of Corrections. Standard fines, fees, and costs will be assessed. Mandatory court costs will be assessed. You will have 30 days to appeal. Do you wish to have appellate counsel appointed?
Yes, Judge, and I've prepared motions for the court. At this stage, I filed 2 notices of appeal. The clerk sent one prematurely to the DCA, and it got returned. I advised him that the state had inadvertently sent it in advance of the sentencing. So that was returned yesterday. I filed was dated or identified as a second notice of appeal, and I've sent the clerk a letter, wait to the sentencing to send this. I've likewise filed with the court a motion for appointment of declare the defendant indigent for costs and to request that the public defender's office be appointed. The JAC has received the pleading. They said they have no input on the matter, and they've been noticed for the hearing as well.
All right. State have any objection?
No.
Okay. Well, court will appoint appellate counsel for Miss Lori Shaver Filmer.
Very well.
All right. Do you have a proposed order?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a proposed order. If I may.
Madam Clerk has an order, Mr. Wiggs, so we'll use the order that Madam Clerk has prepared.
And Your
Is there
Honor,
anything further from the state?
just real briefly, as a matter, when you refer to the standard costs, that would include the $100 cost of prosecution.
Yes, $100 cost of prosecution will be imposed.
Thanks, sir.
Judge, one thing, and I know it's not binding on DOC, but the court can state in an input that as to placement, Ms. Filmer at this stage has requested that the court recommend placement at the Gadsden facility in North Florida for family visitation at this stage.
State have any objection?
No, that's completely up to the Department of Corrections.
And again, that is up to the discretion of the Department of Corrections. The court can merely make a recommendation, and it is so recommended that Miss Lori Shaver Filmer be housed at Gadsden.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Is there anything further from the parties?
Nothing from
Wiggs?
the defense.
There's
Thank
nothing further than we'll adjourn.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.
Judge, I'm sorry.
Oh
While
my
we're all present still, just for purposes of the record and preservation, I'd renew all the pretrial motions to renew my motion for judgment of acquittal and judgment notwithstanding the verdict for purposes of the appeal. I don't think it's necessary, but I just do it on the record at this stage.
Any response from the state? All right.
Okay.
And all prior motions were respectfully denied.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I'd just like to hear myself speak. Oh my gosh. You know he talks in his sleep. Wow. That's not nice, Gabby. That's not nice. That was the weirdest sentencing statement I think I've ever heard. That was something. I can't wait to read that letter. I think Justice Baker reading that letter. He may be done by now, but I may go over and watch that on replay. Yeah, I was surprised she didn't make a statement, but now that you say that's what her letter is, that makes sense because the woman does like herself quite a bit. Almost as much as the first guy we watched that we couldn't hear. Oh my goodness. Some of these defendants. Okay, he read it this morning. Oopsies. All right. I'll have to go watch that on replay. Ah, I'm sure it was entertaining. It's Tracy brought up, so you got Sarah Boone letters, then you got Lori Shaver letter, And then Jessie Kraszewski, she's another letter writer that she was the very first live trial I covered. When we watched her sentencing, that woman likes to write letters, and they got her in trouble because she's not as smart as what she thinks she is. And I actually just watched I think 48 Hours maybe did a show about her. It was interesting to watch and get to see some of the stuff that you don't necessarily get to see in trial because they don't show it. But it was interesting, and I was like, took me back to that trial because, like I said, that was my first one. All right. I think I'm good. You guys good? Any other wonderful people we need to cover? The judge we just saw? Or which judge? I didn't mind either judge that we saw today, just what we saw of them today. Oh, I like Judge Doro. She got a little bit, and for me, and I'm not an attorney, so I have no idea. During Daryl Brooks, her record got a little long, a little lengthy. Like, why do you are rehashing everything we've already gone over, and now you're, for the record, doing it again? And it was really long. That was my only thing with her on that trial. I thought, yeah, she does overprotect the record for appeal. And I get it. I understand it. And I understand they were trying to be just on the straight and narrow with, I think she always is. I don't have a problem with Judge Dora. I liked Sue Opper. I liked her in that case, in the Brooks case. I can't remember the other two attorneys that were with her for the state. They all kept their composure very well, considering he could not at all. He was a piece of work. And as Gabby says, thanks everyone for hanging out, and I hope you have a great Thanksgiving as well. I am ready for some food. I know Flashman's ready for food. Flashman is always ready for food. I do not want any fried tarantula. You don't even have to ask, Flashman. I'm good. Yes. And Jess, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us and sending that letter. I am ready to go read it. Tracy. She must have gotten the too small straw sticks for those trials. Yeah. She there was something. It's like, dang it. Yeah, I don't know. She was good. She let him go on for what? 2 hours or something? I don't know. It was crazy how long she let Daryl Brooks go on about anything that happened to him. He never was remorseful about that parade. I don't even know that he is to this day. I don't think he sees it. They don't want appeals for. Absolutely, Jess. You're probably correct on that. Absolutely. Baker doesn't like Judge Dora. Well, what's the matter with him? I have to talk to him about that. All right. Well, I just, he's impatient. Well, he's a man, right? They don't have much. I think God gave women a lot of patience, and he gave men a little. That's nothing against men. That's just the way it is. But I just got a text from my daughter-in-law. They are loading up. I know you're a dude. Are you very patient, though? But my daughter-in-law and son are loading up the baby and heading this way. So I'm going to end this so I can go do that. And you guys all have a great Thanksgiving. If you are celebrating Thanksgiving, isn't there something the day after Thanksgiving in Canada? I'm not sure. I don't remember. Is that Boxing Day? I don't remember. I will. I get a lot of baby time today, tomorrow, Friday, and Sunday and Monday. I will have a lot of baby time. But it's her first Thanksgiving. So I always have a good time with her. Well, that's good. See, that shows growth, Flash fan, that you have gained patience. Oh, Boxing Day is December 26th. Oopsies. I should have known that because I always think about clearing all the boxes out. I know that's not what it is. I'm not exactly sure what it is, to be honest. But that's what it reminds me of. All right, guys. I don't think I will be here Friday because if my husband's off work, I'm going to take that day off as well because I don't get very many days where he's not working. So I'll probably just plan on seeing you guys Monday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, or whatever time Miss Boone's sentencing starts. I'll have to look that up, and we will do that. Everybody's going to be doing that. So hopefully you will join me on Boxing Days when you get to punch people. Gabby, I'm in. Of course. Of course. Of course. All right, you guys. Enjoy whatever you're doing. Oh, it's at 1:30. Dang. All right. Well, thank you, Jess. We'll figure something out. Until I want to, you know, she's making a statement. You know she is. Sarah cannot not speak. Or maybe she'll write a letter. Maybe she'll read a letter. Maybe, who knows what we're going to get with her. But I know this. She will profess her innocence. And none of us saw the video. That was a figment of our imagination. That's what it was. Yeah, oh, thanks, Flash Fan. Yeah, I think she will definitely speak. It's going to be wonderful. So excited. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you have the next few days off, enjoy that. If you're spending time with your family, enjoy that. If you're not spending time with your family, enjoy that. Whatever you're doing, just have a good time doing it. And I will see you guys Monday. So I'll see you later.